and welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies! Sorry I sound so bad.
Hey!
This is our Secret Invasion episode 5 spoiler review, and we're recording this just for those two gentlemen on the screen there. Head into Comic-Con, get on the road to head into Comic-Con. So we're going to talk about this one and break it down and have some fun talking about this penultimate episode before we get to that season finale next week. So there's a lot to discuss here. But first, let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, where season 3 of Strawberry Shortcake Berry in the Big City dropped last weekend. First episode written by that guy, Michael Vogel. So we have a bunch new episodes coming. Hope you check them out.
There you go. And of course, we should say right off the bat, unfortunately, Shannon McClung's microphone, there are issues going on. So this is how Shannon is going to sound like through the episode. So we appreciate your understanding. What's that?
I just thought that was puberty.
Oh, boy. Finally. Oh. The golf clap.
Zing. Zing.
The golf clap doesn't hit as hard when it sounds like shit.
All right, anyway, Secret Invasion, episode 5, Harvest, directed by
Hold on, I'm DMing you right now. Zing.
Written by Brian Tucker. This one basically setting the table up for this finale here. Certainly Gravik and his plan comes a little more into focus in this episode. Sonya comes back. We missed her last episode, and so she comes back in full force, getting the information about the machine that Gravik is building from Dr. Dalton. And Nick Fury, and Gaia and Varra bury Talos and fight off some of Gravik's men. And Nick Fury himself goes on this whole journey from protecting the president in the hospital to talking to Gaia about Talos's service, and then going to find the harvest in Finland, revealing that apparently Nick Fury has been collecting the hero's DNA into a vial, which is very Batman-esque. So interesting decision there by Nick Fury. So a lot was revealed here. Mike, your thoughts on Harvest episode 5?
I think there was a good show somewhere in Secret Invasion, but I think at this point, this is not it. Okay. I kind of have gone, like, if you split, 6 episodes? First 2 episodes, I was excited. A lot of potential, a lot of hope on where this is going to go. Second 2 episodes, getting a little frustrated, but, maybe they can bring it home. And now after watching this episode, I was like, man, I think they did not do it. There was a bunch of things in this episode that just really, I just stared at the screen and kind of gave it the same look that I give Shannon when he gives us a really, really bad dad joke. It was just like a really...
I'm unfamiliar with this look. Unfamiliar.
So we'll get
into
it.
This face.
You guys are about to be in a car for 2.5 hours.
Look, I think that same things apply. Like, look, I think, did this episode do a good job of answering a good number of questions and setting the stage for the finale so that the finale can just be all action? It did. Mm-hmm. Are all of the performers doing the absolute Lord's work with the material that they're given? They are. The performances in this thing are still top notch. Obviously, Olivia Colman being the standout of all standouts. But yeah, at this point, the potential of what Secret Invasion could have been versus the execution of what we are getting is a pretty wide gap for me.
Okay. Shannon, your thoughts on episode 5, Harvest?
I mean, I'm not quite where Vogel is, but it's kind of like it's fine. It's a fine show. It's good enough. Which, when you're coming down off the high of Phase 3 and some of the bright spots that we did have in Phase 4, that's not a place where you want your show to be, because it makes it kind of forgettable. Like for me, Moon Knight was an actively bad show, but I will remember Moon Knight way more than I will remember Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion will fall into the catalog next to other movies, and I'm like, oh yeah, that movie came out. It'll fall next to like Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm like, yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp, that was fun enough. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the performances, again, I think the reason that maybe episode 4 may have been people's least favorite was because that was the least amount of Olivia Colman. Having her back in this episode, I mean, she's just so much fun to watch. Watching her take out the doctor, that was a blast. But yeah, I'm afraid that come the end of this show, I don't know how much is going to bleed into the Marvels, and I don't know how much is going to bleed into the overall MCU universe. And yeah, I think it's just going to end up being kind of forgettable.
Yeah, it's interesting because as we're recording this, apparently, according to social media, there is a Marvel's trailer, a new one coming out today. So there have been already stories that that Marvel's is a continuation now. They're kind of semi-confirming that, the continuation of Secret Invasion. So it'd be interesting to see what we're going to get in that trailer, if that teases a little bit of what we're going to get in that finale, which the trailer is already out for the finale. For those of you who want to take a look at it after we finish our review. Yeah, it's just disappointing at the end of the day for this show. It started out so strongly, so well, so exciting. And then these plans are coming. These plans seem like haphazard for a guy I'm supposed to be afraid of. And then the deaths seem to have no significance to anybody other than the moment they happen. And it's so frustrating to watch this kind of stuff because there's more here to tell. And I agree with you, Shannon. I mean, Sonya is to me is maybe the number one, number two reason to watch this show. She is fantastic and electric. If they had made her the focus of the show, I think this would have been a way better show. Just to have Olivia Colman's talent a bit. Look, nothing against Samuel L., but something about Olivia's electricity and her almost sociopathic pursuit of her job, I think is really interesting and electric and something you definitely want to watch. And so the fact that you only get her in bits, I think is just such a shame about this show, but it just feels very undercooked. And there, as you said, Michael, I think there was a better show here that would have really affected all of us who love the MCU and could have forged a bold new path for the MCU as we go into this next phase of phase 5. So, all right, we're going to break this thing down. This is a spoiler review. So you haven't seen it, come on, go see it and come on back and hang out with us. We're going to break it down into 3 storylines here. And let's jump into the first one here. Nick Fury and Sonya. I'm just going to combine those two. Fury's in the hospital with the president, tells him not to trust Rhodes. Rhodes shows up. Fury pulls a gun on Rhodes. Rhodes says the video of him killing Maria is going to be all over the news in 60 seconds. And apparently he'll be the most hated man on the planet. Did everybody on the planet love Maria Hill this much? I don't know. It's an interesting question. Anyway, Sonya confronts director Weatherby in London here, shoots him in the leg to reveal that he is a Skrull to everybody else and to get the information of where Dr. Rosa Dalton is. Sonya finds the Daltons, talks about being a bestie and not being a bestie. And then Sonya wants to know about the machine that Dr. Dalton is building for Gravik. She torches the lab, and when Victor Dalton tries to fight back, Sonya shoots him in the head with purple blood on Dr. Dalton. I'm bringing that up for a reason. Rhodes tells the president what Gravik wants him to do. Gravik calls Fury, wants to make a deal, bring him the harvest, which we find out later in the episode is the DNA of all the Avengers, and he'll call this attack that he's trying to coordinate through Rhodes for the president attacking Russia. He'll call it off in exchange for the harvest. Fury gets on a plane to Finland, and who's there but Rick Mason, another Black Widow reference here, gives him a passport, and what we find out, I think, is the widow's veil in a little container because Fury arrives in Finland as a white dude, meets Sonya, pulls the veil off, reveals he has it on, and there's apparently a better version he alludes to, and then they head off listening to Stormzy. Interesting choice for Sonya. Fury tells Sonya Rhodes is a Skrull, which apparently surprises Sonya, which is kind of a bit of a surprise. They discuss Gravik's plan. We hear that Fury collected all the Avengers' blood from the battlefields and that Gravik was part of the team or led the team that did the collecting. Fury reveals the harvest in a vial. Then, in a scene that's supposed to be badass, goes into a mausoleum and collects his eye patch, leather jacket, gun from separate containers in the mausoleum when they all could have fit one, and then puts on his purple beanie and comes out. He calls someone and says, "It's time. Let's finish this." Who was it? So, Mike, your thoughts on these 2 storylines, and who the hell was he calling at the end? I've heard so many different people saying it could be Quake from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I think is insane. It could be Captain Marvel. It could be Florence Pugh's character. So it could be any number of things. So, Mike, your thoughts overall here on these storylines and who he's calling?
Well, okay. Let me just go through a couple things that really bugged me.
All right, go ahead.
Number 1, Rhodey saying this video is going to drop and you're going to be the most hated man in the world. Now, in episode 2, we already have video of Nick Fury at the scene of a mass death. Like hundreds of people died and Nick Fury was there, and it was such a big deal that a board of international diplomats were questioning Rhodey about Nick Fury's being there.
Yeah.
But now the fact that he killed somebody that 99% of the world don't know is supposed to be the thing that really tips it over the edge. That makes no sense. 2, screenwriting tip for anybody who's watching.
Ooh, interesting.
Do not have a character say, the only way that you can reveal that I am a Skrull is to kill me, and then in the very next scene have Olivia Colman walk in and reveal that somebody is a Skrull without killing them.
She only has to cut off a finger from what we learned
Like,
4 episodes ago. Yeah.
Nick Fury could have been hiding down the hall, shot Rhodey in the arm from a distance, dude would have turned green. I'm sorry, lady would have turned green. Like, this, it was just like, it's one thing where Rhodey said, like, I was watching it and Rhodey was like, the only way that you can prove my Skrull is to kill me. And I was like, I feel like that's not technically accurate given what we've seen, but all right, for the tension of the scene, I'll give it to them. But then in the very next scene, Olivia Colman walked in. And so, and this is part of the problem, like you said, Sonya's a badass.
Yeah.
And Nick Fury is not.
Right. He's a step
That's
behind.
the issue with this show. Like, and that was okay for episodes 1 through 3, where Nick Fury was like, clearly, okay, he's been up on Saber, he's got his issues, whatever. But at this point, it's the 5th episode of 6. And as far as I'm concerned, Olivia Colman could clean up this Skrull problem with no help from Nick Fury and be fine, because she's doing all the work here and he's just sort of running around.
Yeah.
So that bugged me. Sonya great. Olivia Colman great. The scene with her and the doctor is great. Everything she said was great. Shooting the dude in the head was great. Like, her whole little bit about, yeah, males on my planet are the same. They either talk down to you or try and murder you. It's really annoying. Like, she's just gold. Like, keep her in the MCU as long as you can have her and give her bigger and bigger roles. Yeah. And I'm all about it. Seeing Mason, cool, but like, this is the problem. Like, whereas someone like Mason would have showed up in previous phases of Marvel and you'd be like, oh, cool. At this point, I was like, all right. And then, you know, Sam Jackson shows up as Donald Sutherland in Finland, kind of walks through the airport. Cool, great. Him and Sonya have the whole bit. Now, The Harvest is a perfectly good MacGuffin. Mm-hmm. It's a good MacGuffin. Like, okay, 2 things, and both are like, neither of these things are huge gripes for me, but just in the sum total of everything that happens. Yeah. 1, why are we collecting the Avengers DNA?
You're right.
There's 1,000 reasons. Like, it's not a ridiculous idea, but for Fury to say, after the Battle of Earth, where they all thought Thanos, there was blood all over the field, everybody got cut up, and we decided that we needed to collect their DNA, and we sent the Skrulls in to do it, and Gravik led them. You're like, okay, cool. What for? Like, what does, like, are we planning on, like, did the government want to clone the Avengers? Did we want, like, what is the reason for DNA? Like, it's good, but like, there's no, it's one of those things that sounds like, oh yeah, okay, they got the DNA. But when you really think about it, you're like, to what end? And then this was just a thing that irked me. Look, I love Jurassic Park. And when Nedry goes into Jurassic Park and steals all the DNA from the dinos, it's very well organized DNA. You've got a little Triceratops vial. You've got a little Velociraptor vial. Right, separately. I am curious, once you have collected the DNA of every Avenger, is it really the most scientifically sound thing to put it all in one eyedropper? Right. Like, should we not have perhaps had like a larger vial that had little vials that popped off of it with like the symbols of the Avengers on it or something? Like, that little vial, I don't know what anybody does with that. You're like, hey, do you have Captain America's DNA? I do, but it's kind of in here with everybody else, so you're kind of just going to get what you're going to get. Like, I don't know. I don't know what that does. Yeah. And then, yes, to your point, after he had this tiny little vial in the tombstone, I was like, well, maybe they did that because he had to hide it somewhere and it was really dangerous and he put it all in that vial because that was the one place he could hide it. No. He had an entire locker in the mausoleum. but rather than storing the DNA safely, he said, I need a space for my eye patch.
Yeah. This guy must be a dick at the gym. Just using all the different lockers for his different pieces.
So look, like, all in all, like, I think that the answer of what Gravik is after and how Gravik knows about it totally makes sense. But short of that, and then also and this is another one that really irked me. Rhodey's entire plan here, or really Gravik's plan that Rhodey is enacting, is get the president to blow up the Skrull base in Russia, and that's going to cause World War III.
Right.
And everyone's like, if we do that, and I'm like, does nobody think to just call Russia? Like, hey, Russia, you've got a bunch of aliens in one of your old nuclear facilities. I think we all need to deal with it. Like, there's this giant leap in logic that nobody can let Russia know, so that their option is just bomb Russia, and Russia's going to be like, the fuck?
Right.
But, like, it's just a little sloppy.
Yep, I agree. Now, who do you think he's calling at the end?
Man, I hope Kevin Feige to be like, get your shit together. I don't know.
Brother,
this
Kevin
is one
Feige
of those.
supervised this, so I mean, I think he's aware of what this is.
Maybe Bob Iger? I don't know.
No,
be like, Bob, stop talking about the fucking strike and get your house in order. That's what he's calling him for. No, I don't know. I think that it's going to be whoever it is, it's not going to be anyone that is that. Oh, another big one. Speaking of that, God, I forgot this one.
Yeah.
I get that we cannot cast every Avenger in every Disney Plus TV show. Sure. I understand that is something that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the way that it is built, you always have to have a little bit of a, well, not everything can be Endgame. But to say that we are about to have nuclear war and eradicate the species, but Fury can't call the superheroes because this is personal.
Yeah.
Is the stupidest justification. And the way better justification is, why don't you call the Avengers? Rhodey is a Skrull. I can't trust anybody. Doctor Strange is gone on another planet. Thor's on another planet. Iron Man is dead. Captain America is dead. Nobody knows who Spider-Man is anymore. I could go to see Valkyrie. I could call Ant-Man and the Wasp. There's a handful of people I could call. Right. But at this point, I don't know if they're Skrulls or not. So I can only trust these people is a way better justification than this time it's personal.
Right. And we can't always call superheroes whenever we need them, even though we've been doing that for 4 decades. In the Marvel Universe, MCU canon timeline.
That's
Shannon,
it. I'm done.
was a good opening salvo. Shannon McClung, your thoughts on these Nick Fury and Sonya storyline, and who is Nick calling at the end? Your speculation.
I mean, Vogel hit the big ones. So the stuff that I'll just talk about is the moment that opening scene where Fury is coming in with the injured president and 2 doctors. This is the president of the United States.
Right.
This is a very calm scene.
Yeah.
when you see Nick Fury say, like, don't trust Colonel Rhodes. Don't trust Colonel Rhodes. I'm like, I get that they want to keep it quiet, but at the same time, just the way this was shot, I'm like, this seems way too normal. I'm like, you got to bounce your camera around a little bit. Because we don't get the stakes based off of this. This was a very cleanly shot sequence. Going then to Rhodey, again, he's got him up against the wall, and the fact that he's just like, the only way you can prove that I'm a Skrull is to kill me, and it's like, Rhodey didn't watch the last few episodes. But then as they pull out and you see Rhodey's one guy on his detachment who's sort of, again, kind of awkwardly standing. It's like, that is not a good shot. Like, were you on a time crunch? Were you shooting during the COVID protocols? Like, this is just so uninspiring. And then the moment that Fury's walking away and suddenly 10 of Rhodey's guard comes out of nowhere, it's like, why doesn't he stop? Okay, I guess. Finding out that Gravik was one of the folks that came in and was collecting the DNA. Fury'd been gone for 5 years. So I don't know. I mean, just talking about the impact that his absence had, it's like, is that, I don't know. I liked what we came up with better, that Gravik was basically, he kind of raised him as his son. And, I thought that was maybe a little more emotionally stronger. The Sonya, awesome. I wonder if there's a world where they're like, before they start shooting Thunderbolts, like, maybe Sonya's the one who would put this team together, and maybe not Val. Because
don't give me hope. Don't give me hope like that. That would be
Olivia Colman. She's just been so delightful to watch. And yes, like there are those moments that are kind of built into the structure of a sequence where, like, all right, here we go. This is where the audience really gets behind us. But the fact that, yes, they're in different compartments, an eye patch, a hat, coat, and a gun. And then the thing that is the most valuable, you're leaving out in the elements. It was just not it was, as I'm watching it, I'm kind of like, okay, I have loved so much of Marvel. There's a lot of stuff that I'm like, all right. Like, I don't actively hate this, but it's sort of like, oh, this is fine. This is fine.
Yeah. What about hold on, Mike. Who is he calling? Who's he calling? Who's your speculation?
No one of note.
All right, Mike.
I think like the whole speculation. This is like it happens every season on a Star Wars, on a Marvel. Who's he calling? Carol Danvers is gonna come in. No, it's gonna be Hawkeye and Kate Bishop are gonna show up. It's like it is gonna be Mason. Like, it's going to be like, okay. This really, what Secret Invasion really reminds me of, and if you're a comic book fan and you've been reading comic books for years, this happens a lot. Like, you are reading Avengers, you're reading X-Men, you're reading Cap, you're reading all these comics, and then, like, this special 6-issue Nick Fury, like, one shot comes out, and you're super excited for it, and it starts strong, and by the time you get to that 6th month and you get issue number 6, you're like, you really have realized that Marvel pulled one on you, and this is not great, but like at this point you already bought the first 4 issues, so you're gonna finish it. That's how this feels.
Yeah,
that's how Secret Invasion feels.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and that's what I feel about both of these storylines. I like the Sonya storyline so much more because she's a badass, and this is what Fury should have been when he came back. I don't know why they went with the old man who's lost a step storyline. It's really kind of gotten annoying at this point, and so it doesn't really work. And too many smart people are doing stupid things and doing oblivious things, and it just at some point you're just like, this makes no sense. And sure, the president is going to take Rhodey's advice about launching a full-scale attack on Russia and launching World War III without talking to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, without going through Congress, without having these, like, come on. And let alone, as Michael said, talking to the prime minister of Russia or the president of Russia, whatever they've set up there for Russia in terms of leadership. That's the smarter move. So this idea, it's almost like a child's approach to politics and to this kind of stuff. And it's frustrating because there's much more nuance here that could have been explored. And you give no development to the president. Absolutely zero. I know some of y'all hate that I like these side characters to have a little more development. But if you're going to make the man launch World War III, give me a little background on the homie. Let me know a little bit more about this. And also, Rhodes is Skrull. Why is she doing this? What is her motivation? What is her drive? Other than being, on board with Gravik, what turned her around? There's much more. There's 4 more episodes in this show that really could have fleshed out everything you've got going on here. It's starting to feel like Falcon and Winter Soldier, and even what we're going to see, we're going to talk about here in the next couple storylines. The idea of them turning on Gravik, like it's all very similar to Falcon and Winter Soldier. So it just kind of gets a little bit like there was great intentions, but it just doesn't hit the mark at all. And a lot of people saying he's calling Quake. I think he's just calling Gravik and going, it's time. Let's finish this, because Gravik called him. So he's saying, let's go meet and let's get this on once and for all. So that's what I think.
Maybe.
All right, go ahead.
Well, just really quick on the.
Oh, really quick.
We talked. Yeah, really quick. Really quick. I'm gonna get a T-shirt that just says "really quick."
You really should. You really should.
So on the Dermot Mulroney stuff, on the President Ritson stuff, like, you're not wrong, and I think there is a world where you could have gotten more episodes and got more into this. But even given the length of time that we've had and the amount of time that Ritson has been on screen, they didn't really make a choice with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you had in that very first scene in the White
100%.
House had an aide saying that his poll numbers were down, people were thinking he was soft on international policy, like he really wasn't doing well. Everyone thought, and that you could see that he wanted to be like, I got to show everybody that I'm strong, that America's strong. And so that when Rhodey comes in here, it's like, sir, you could you could make a response that really shows America that you really are the president they want. Like, just making a choice about him, even in the amount of space that you have, and using those scenes to your better advantage, would have given you maybe not as much as you wanted ideally, but would have given you at least a little bit more like, I understand why this president is going to make this choice because I was told this earlier.
Yeah, I think that's a better clarification of what I was saying. I don't need to know where he went to college and meet his wife and kids or anything like that, but I need to know what is going on. What is the context of his existence in the show? That's an excellent point, Michael, for sure. All right, let's move on to the other storyline. Then we'll take a break after this one. Gaia and Varra. Gaia is waiting in Nick's safe house. Apparently, she's figured out how to not have the tape portray that she's walked through the door. Nick explains the safe house is important since connection to World War II and immigrants who came over and found safe space there. They talk of Talos' death. Gaia says nothing will come of it. Fury kind of pushes back and says, no, he chose this path. He wants to fight. This is your time now. And then she tells Fury of the DNA that Gravik stole to make himself this super Skrull that he is, and that he was looking for the harvest, but was only able to find this DNA. Now, listen, him being able to find this DNA is just as bad, I would think, considering the powers he got. But anyway, he sends Gaia to Varra to help bury Talos. Gaia and Varra burn Talos' body, and Gaia says more people should be here. And Varra, speaking for the budget, says Talos wasn't about pageantry and didn't need a lot of people around. And Varra says she didn't run from the execution order because she loves her house and loves the significance of her house. What? Varra talks glowingly about watching Fury reading a book in the sunlight and the sun kissing his skin. I was super uncomfortable during this moment. I don't need to see Fury as some kind of sexual object. Then they have a badass scene fighting off Gravik's hitmen who bleed red blood. So are they not Skrulls? I'm so confused by this. So, Shannon, your thoughts on the Gaia and Varra storylines here as we got more with the Talos' funeral, and then Varra and Gaia fighting off Gravik's men?
I mean, in terms of the writing, you can tell it would be fascinating to be a fly on the wall of some of these meetings, because you can see that the writers wanted to tell a specific story. They did want to give it something a little deeper, like, those comparisons, to the immigrants after, the Nazis had destroyed a certain block and everything. Yes. Like, you could tell there was something there that they wanted to try to do. And it was one of those things that you can't really do it halfway. You either have to do it or you don't do it. Because what we've gotten is the halfway version, where it's like you get these little blips and it's like, okay, but why haven't we discussed that a little bit more? Again, Emilia Clarke, really, really great performance. I mean, doing as much as she can. You do sense that sort of, melancholic sadness talking about her dad and the whole thing about, like, I knew he was going to lose. Like, that's really, really sad. I mean, I wasn't considering the pageantry budget comparison, Johnny. So bravo. I was just like, well, yeah, that makes sense.
You're right.
We've only got 2 people on set. Let's bang this thing out. The fight I actually thought was pretty well choreographed. I thought it was done pretty well. There is a thing that, and Marvel has done this in the past, and I wish they would stop. There is a thing when a bad guy is rappelling in, and they're able to dispose of them before they land, and then the body's just kind of hanging there. And when it's hanging in the background as 2 people are talking, it is very, very distracting. So that's one of those things that I kind of wish they'd push to the side. I mean, again, maybe Varra is the one he called at the end.
Maybe.
But yeah, this was, again, more of like, okay, this is fine.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, there's no real. I mean, Talos was such a significant part since Black Widow, and you have such a fantastic actor playing him in Ben Mendelsohn, and just like his wife dying off screen, who we got to know in both the Spider-Man film and in Black Widow.
Captain Marvel.
I'm sorry, Captain Marvel. He dies last episode, and it's a sad death, but he's really dead. Like Maria, they're really dead, and there's no real big thing, and they put him on there like Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi and burn him. So I mean, what are your thoughts here on the Gaia and Varra storylines? Does this make any sense that she stuck around in her house because it means so much to her rather than fighting them off at a dark alley?
It did kind of feel like she was like, why are you staying here? And she was like, do you know how much I paid for this house? Like, this was not cheap. Here's the thing I think about Gaia. I was really thinking about this a lot. Like, so what it seems like to me is that you have this show that you have Talos on one side, who says we should just go ask the humans if we can please stay here.
Yeah.
And you have Gravik on the other side being like, fuck this shit, we're going to make this new Skrullos. And you have Gaia, who's sort of the character that's supposed to be in the middle. I think they made some mistakes along the way, but she's in the middle. She doesn't agree with Talos. She doesn't agree with Gravik. We already know Talos doesn't make it out of this alive. I'm assuming Gravik's not making it out of the end of this season either. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe.
So I think that leaves you with Talos' daughter, who now has super Skrull abilities. So I feel like Emilia Clarke in this show is kind of like Loki in the first Thor movie. I think Loki in the first Thor movie is not great. I think Loki doesn't become great until Thor 2. Thor 2 is horrible, but Loki is Loki in Thor 2.
Easy
and,
now,
okay,
easy.
Shannon.
I know you didn't get to go with us, but come on.
I swear to God. But I think that Gaia, as what it seems like, the Skrull that is going to take up the leadership mantle and lead the Skrulls to somewhere, has a lot of potential in the MCU if used correctly. Right. I think she could be great. I think one of the problems they made with Gaia along the way is, and again, it's just muddy storytelling. In the first episode, like, she was like, I'm on Gravik's side, but she instantly went to Talos and was like, hey, here's some information. In the first episode. Yeah. So within the first episode, she was already conflicted. I think when you have 6 episodes and you're really like, and you know where you want to get, you're like, all right, we need to have her be Gravik's ride or die for at least an episode or 2. Then find out she was giving info in 3 and 4 and she's very conflicted. And then you get to this moment in episode 5 and you're like, okay, she's choosing her. So it just like everything was sort of like Gaia was sort of good and sort of not from episode 1. Right. And sort of, it's kind of what Shannon said about doing things halfway. When she's sort of, for 6 episodes, we don't really get a strong sense. If she had been this here, but then the scene with her dad really like fucked her up, and then she wasn't sure, and then she made a choice, like it would just be stronger. All that being said, I still think, as Shannon said, Emilia Clarke is doing great work. Yeah, agreed. And by the end of this episode, even though so many things really bugged me, I really like Gaia. I also, despite the weird I'm staying in this house because I really like it monologue, I kind of like Varra now. It reconfirms what we said last week, which is I wish Varra had come in earlier. Yep. Because last week when you had the whole scene with her and Fury, it was a great scene, but I wasn't as invested because I feel like I was just getting to know her. But her scene here with Gaia, where she was like, don't worry, I know the prayer, and they had this whole talk, Skrull to Skrull, I was like, you know what? These two are good characters. There's a lot of really good potential here with these two. And if these two picked up the pieces of the Skrull Empire on Earth and sort of became our go-to Skrull characters moving forward, I think there's a lot of potential here, despite the fact that I think they both had sort of bumpy starts in the series.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's what we talked about a couple episodes, Shannon, when we were doing the solo review ourselves, and said, like, the writing here with the one-on-one scenes is fantastic. It really is. And that's what really layers the characters when you've got these two good actors going back and forth with each other. It's in the outer stuff that where the show is falling apart. Varra and Gaia having these conversations, I thought was really good and helped us care about these characters more. And then you give them a badass fight scene where, I mean, I read one of the reviews said it gave me shades of Terminator Genesis in a positive way. And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, Emilia's a badass. I love that she's getting to do this kind of stuff. It's just the fumbling of the ball of her character completely. This is a Ben Solo situation. We don't know why she broke off. We don't have any flashbacks. We don't see what was the inciting incident that made her gonna believe in Gravik more than we have no background or no flashbacks of them developing their relationship, Gravik and Gaia. So there's nothing here to give us a real foundation of motivation for the things that she's doing and the conflict, the inner conflict that she's having. It's just being told to us. And that's not enough, not with a show that's supposed to be this nuanced and deep and interesting and spy thriller. There has to be much more meat on the bone than what they're showing us. And it's frustrating. And that being said, though, as you said, both Emilia Clarke and the actress playing Varra, they're both doing wonderful work with the limited screen time they're getting and the limited character work they're getting to make us care about them. I mean, there's a world where Nick Fury dies next week. And it's Sonya and Gaia who essentially replace Fury and Talos. And I'm 100% on board with that situation if it happens. So, all right, let's take a quick.
I think he's in the Marvels, John. So I don't think that's gonna happen.
Maybe they're burying him in the Marvels. Anyway, all right, let's take a break and we'll get to the last section of our review right after this.
There are Skrulls coming from the sky. They're on planet Earth, and they want us all to die.
Oh, is this like the sequel to Rogers the Musical? Because count me in.
All right, this is a quick recap. Gravik and his plan. He's gone full Mania, kills Pagon with his group powers. Apparently, they were saving it for this scene and not for the scene of it. But Pagon, like me, calls out Gravik. He goes, "You won't kill Fury. What is your effing problem?" And he gets a Groot tree branch through his heart here. And I put Roid Rage. This feels like Roid Rage from taking all those chemicals inside of his body to become this super Skrull. And I put, it's another useless death in the show. I mean, Pagon has been built up through the 5 episodes, and he gets killed just randomly for questioning Gravik. Then we get Rhodes telling the president, as we said earlier, there was Russians harboring new Skrullos. If it doesn't work out, Gravik tells Rhodes, if it doesn't work out, then they're just going to have to kill themselves and sacrifice themselves, which I'm sure Gravik means everyone else but him, as these maniacal leaders always mean, everyone else but me. Then gets attacked by his own people, led by Beto. He goes full Super Skrull and kills everyone who attacks him, including Beto, and cuts his throat in front of everybody. And I put here another useless death. Sorry, Shannon, he is not Nick Fury's plant. So that was I don't know. Mike, you're next up on the rotation here. Your thoughts on Gravik and his plan and the death of both Pagon and Beto here.
Again, it's all muddy, man. It's all muddy. So like, here's the deal. If I think the idea that Gravik, because look, now what it seems like is Gravik did not want Fury dead because he needs to know where the harvest is.
The harvest
Fury's
is
the only
right,
one who
right.
knows. But if that's the case, then why order Varra to kill Fury?
Right.
You can't say, I ordered her to do it because I knew she wasn't going to do it and that was going to do. Like, that gets to some weird, creepy shit. Like, there's just like, you either are like, so like, I think Pagon being like, why aren't you killing Fury? Fury, but also, I guess, yeah, Fury saved the president, but Fury hasn't been a huge thorn in their side. They seem to have contained him. Like, so this whole, like, it's all about Fury seems a little bit silly anyways, but like, I was watching, I'm like, all right, so it kind of makes sense that he refused to kill Fury because this was his ultimate plan is he wanted the harvest. Cool.
Right.
But then him ordering Varra and other stuff, you're like, well, but then that doesn't track. So again, Gravik's whole thing is just muddy. Like, I think they were like, oh, we need it to seem like he wants him to kill her, wants Fury to kill, wants Fury dead, but like, we really have to reveal this. And like, it just got muddy somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Additionally, like, look, I think one of the things we said about Gravik at the beginning is it was cool because he was a villain that he was justified. To a degree. Like, the Skrulls are all on Earth. They want to have a planet. He feels that Fury has used them to get ahead for himself, and that he and Carol Danvers have never delivered on their promise from the 90s to find them a planet, and he's pissed for his people.
Yeah.
And that was cool. And even him going in and bullying the Skrull Council and saying, y'all are not doing anything, we're going to like kick things up a notch. Okay, that's cool. You're a good villain. And I get the whole, okay, my lieutenants are questioning me and I'm going to lash out at them. That's okay, cool. That's supervillain textbook cool. But to go, hey, I want the harvest, and if I don't get the harvest, I think the best plan is we're going to wipe out all of my people.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that seems to go completely antithetical to your ultimate motivation. So now you're just going into just like kind of generic villain 101. To your point, John, it's like, well, I want the power of the Avengers and I'm going to get it at any cost. Therefore, I'm going to sacrifice anybody. And now you're just a way less interesting villain.
Yeah.
Like, Gravik was on his way to becoming like the Skrull Magneto, where like, I don't agree with you. And I think you're a terrorist and I think you're the bad guy, but what you want is mutant rights or Skrull rights. You are right. You're just a little bit too aggressive in your tactics.
Yeah.
And now he's just, give me the powers. I'm the bad guy. And you're like, all right. Like, so I just think it sort of undercuts what could have made Gravik really interesting. But also, I don't think Gravik's making it out of the next episode. So I don't think they're really invested in making him a super interesting villain.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you could easily have used Gravik as a template for commentary on being a maniacal leader of people you have whipped up into a frenzy. Whatever your opinion is on whatever you're going on politically, there is a commentary to be made about leaders that drink their own buy their own press or drink their own pee. Yes, drink their own juice.
Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
Kool-Aid.
I'm trying to say Kool-Aid. Who drink their own Kool-Aid and believe themselves to be above everyone else, yet play the I'm an everyman, but I must be at the top of the pyramid, but I'm an everyman. There was some commentary that really could have been made here through Gravik that would have worked. And for those who are watching it, for the nuance and the symbolism and the commentary that is bubbling below the surface, it could have been much more powerful. Now he's just an angry dude who wants all the power, and we still don't know fully why. It's just, I got tired of waiting. There's got to be more here, and there isn't. And it becomes super frustrating to see that go on with him. And Pagon was right for calling him out and doing that. And then the Beto death. Why did you even introduce Beto at the beginning of this show if you're just going to off him? So, Shannon, your thoughts on the storyline with Gravik and the plan here that Gravik has as he's improvising as he goes along, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of already hit it all.
Okay.
I mean, the whole idea that Beto was introduced just to kill him without anything of note really happening, that is kind of disappointing. And I don't think it's a situation where they ran out of time and like, sorry, his storyline's hitting. I don't think there was probably a storyline now that we've gotten to the end of the road, that there wasn't anything significant that had actually happened with him, which is a bummer. But yeah, one more episode. And we're on to the next Disney Plus series.
I think there probably was. I mean, I might be wrong about this, but I think that in the original drafts of scripts, there probably was more with Beto. And I just think as you got into production and you were shooting all the action sequences and everything else, I think things just got cut and cut and cut and cut. And it just feels like the Beto thing, like kind of to John's point, had Beto stood up at the end, and as opposed to just like leading this very stupid coup. Yeah. Hey, we've seen that you are literally invincible and have tree powers. Let us try and hit you with a mallet. Not your best plan. But if Beto had stood up and said, hey, you said that you stood for this. You said that you were here for our people. You said that you wanted this. And now all you want is this. And kind of made all the points that John said about like a despotic leader kind of doing all these things. Then at least Beto has this role. Like Beto's like, I was a believer, but now I see you're wrong. And I'm going to step up and like see other people sort of gather behind him and go, oh, Beto's going to, nope, he killed him. And then that makes Gravik super bad, but Beto made this point for you. And his character has some kind of reason for existing.
Yeah. If Beto had been talking to the other Skrulls and had slowly, episode per episode, there have been scenes with him growing and feeling comfortable around the Skrulls, growing and calling out certain things that are happening, talking about his experiences of being in the car and watching Grabone get taken out into the woods and killed, there could have been much more substance to Beto, so that when he defies Gravik, it has more weight, and you can understand why people rallied around Beto to attack Gravik. If you're still going to go with that kitchen mallet scene, it still could have worked, and it just didn't. Plus, I mean, isn't there a Skrull Security Council that's in charge of Britain, the United Nations, the airwaves, and has not been used at all? What the fuck? It's just so frustrating that there's great stuff presented and nothing comes of it, or nothing comes to fruition, or they just completely forget about it, which is like, well, what the fuck? So that's what I feel about the show right now. WTF at the end of the day. Anything more we need to say? Anything more to touch on, or shall we wrap up this review, gentlemen?
Okay. I say let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for this spoiler review here of Secret Invasion episode 5 Harvest. We appreciate it badly. Thank you very much for all the comments and the back and forth you guys have on the YouTube down there. We appreciate y'all's comments, y'all's analysis very, very much. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mike?
If you love the MCU, if you hate the MCU, if you love Secret Invasion, if you hate Secret Invasion, we've got a little bit of everything here for you. And so for all my geeks, here is what you can do for us. You can hit that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, leave your comments below, let us know what you think. What are you loving? What are you hating? Where do you think Marvel's going? Where would you like Marvel to go? Let us know below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some stars and some comments so that we go up in the rankings and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing that you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. And look for listen, it's going to be Comic-Con this week. We're doing a lot of things, so we're going to try our best to do a show from Comic-Con. So be patient with us. Let us enjoy it and see what's going on. But that will definitely report back with a show for you. So look for that sometime this week here from us at the Geek Buddies. All right, y'all take care of yourselves. Be well. And we'll talk to you next week as we wrap up our spoiler reviews of Secret Invasion here on the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey! Yeah.